This is Love Anthropology.
Hello, I am Gino Silverfox, and this is
Gay Derk.
And we together co-host the Love Anthropology podcast. But today we have a little bit of a twist. I'm going to be interviewing, or rather having a conversation with Gay here. So she'll be our guest. Gay is the inspiration behind Love Anthropology and reason why I'm here. She is a successful businesswoman, a mother, a wife, as well as now hosting a podcast. So I just wanted to start by asking Gay what your inspiration was to start a podcast on love.
It basically is a passion project. I've been working on this project for over 20 years with a lot of really great people. Before it was really, I dealt with a lot of it with the magazine that we do with Bridal Fantasy, and we had a section called Relationship Revolution. And divorce here in Canada runs around 50%, 55% in the States. So what we did was get together with a team of really excellent people like Dr. Brenda Wade and Dr. John Gray and others to basically get information out there on how to make your relationship successful. Anytime you have a successful marriage or relationship, it's better for the children, it's better for the couple. There's so many things that we can learn from communication with each other.
Perfect. So I know this year the world sort of took a turn, a twist. Some might say a twist for the worse or for better. What are your thoughts on COVID and what it has done to love? Do you think it's created the need for more love, for more understanding for love, or since divorce rates have gone up, has done a opposite? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, a lot of this has to do with finances. And no matter what we say, finances are a big part of a relationship and love. There's no two ways about it. You have also had abuse go up. They figure right now, when I was talking to Brenda, that divorce is up almost 30% over what it was before. And the numbers already were horrific. But when you get women stuck at home now, because that's exactly what's happening, they usually are the ones that earn less money. And if somebody has to stay home with the kids and homeschool them, and then if their husband loses his job as well, you've got a crisis happening. And so there is a lot of abuse. Winhouse, a lot of women's organizations are, just totally overwhelmed with what's going on right now.
So what do you think your intent with Love Anthropology starting this podcast was? To, if I had to say, complete this sentence, to educate people in...
It basically, education is a huge part, and communication. Like, how many people really open up and communicate about money or something that's really troubling them? There's a lot of people right now that are, in a really bad way with COVID. It depresses people. There's a lot of mental stress. How do you deal with that? Some people, especially a lot of times men, won't open up about it at all. So it is something that we have to challenge ourselves to actually open up and communicate better.
Yeah. I find you to be an inspiration. I mean, I've been married for 15 years. You've been married for now
40, let's see.
Yeah.
Coming up 45 years.
Yeah. Especially in this day and age, I hope I make it to that. I know I will. But do you have any advice in terms of marriage, from where it starts to decade after decade, where it ends up? How to keep that love alive and going? What would you say to someone like me that's
I think the biggest thing I find is you have to always look at the positive. It's really easy to take something that after 15, 20 years, you can pick apart with your spouse. But if you remember or write down some of those things that originally attracted you to them, I think it's important a lot of times to have pictures out of the family and of things you did when you were younger, because it reminds you of that kind of thing. And if you have an attitude of gratitude and you basically thank them for something that they do, they cooked a really great meal, instead of just coming in and eating it, tell them what a great job they did. Those kind of things are important. And a lot of times as a relationship progresses, people just stop doing those things.
Yeah. So reaffirmation of things that you, not to take things for granted, essentially, and being grateful, that reminder day after day. It also reminds you of the person you're with, and you're forced to pick the good things in your partner when you do that, when you write something. I did an exercise for a month where I wrote one thing that I felt grateful with regards to my partner, and I found that automatically and subconsciously in time, it kind of forced you to focus on the positives rather than the negative.
Exactly. And when there's a crisis, it's how do you deal with that? I mean, that's one thing that, I talk about, because in our marriage, we've had several. We've had a major house fire where we've lost almost everything. We've had a burglar break into the house that actually my husband ended up having a physiological amputation of his arm, internal injuries, head injuries. How do you deal with this? This is not the same person you necessarily married. And a lot of the people, when he went to physio, would tell me that 98.9% of the marriages fail after somebody is that critically injured, and they go through all the rehabilitation, but a lot of times the marriage doesn't last after the rehabilitation.
You said 98% or around that percentage of marriages fail after that. So how did yours succeed? What do you think you did or you guys did together as a couple that made it go on?
Well, you have to talk about how they feel. You have to find different outlets. I mean, it's really almost like being married to somebody else. Again, after something that's that critical, they're not the same. And they have a lot of physical issues to deal with all the time.
Yeah.
My husband only has about 10% use of one of his arms. So, all those things are things that you have to deal with, and you literally have to talk about it. And sometimes you have to realize they're just in a slump and you have to help them out.
Yeah.
And that's just how that goes. And that can be a challenge to you, but those are things that you have to learn to deal with.
Well, you've made it. So your advice is something I'm gonna take. And somewhere in our conversation, you had mentioned that you had an opportunity. I guess, if I'm not wrong, this entire journey of love and positive thinking started when you met Louis Salhe. If I'm not. Tell us about that. Where did that journey start?
That journey started because I was told I had terminal cancer with 5 tumors. And I was pretty shocked. And it's a hard thing to deal with. And I made a decision that I wasn't going to use chemotherapy or other, traditional methods. I decided to use alternative methods, and I really immersed myself in that and the culture that Hay House has, different things like that. So that made a huge difference. It was a huge turning point in my life. And, I had 5 tumors, the largest being 23 centimeters, the next 19. And about 6-7 months later, there were none. So, it just goes to show there's a lot of things that you can manifest with your willpower, with your brain. It doesn't work for everybody. It's not a be-all, end-all for everybody. I used a lot of other methods that were available to you, like from Reiki, massage, all kinds of things.
Right. So, and that's, I guess, an important point is it's not for everyone. You can't just say, stop taking treatments and go do this. It's a belief system. It's your belief, and it has a lot of that placebo effect to it that you and as you said, you tried many other methods, and you came across a method that you believed in, and that came through for you.
Yes, and I think it's all the positivity that there was in Hay House when I went down there. There were about 20 authors at the first workshops that they were doing, and I had read 18 authors, their books, and there was only 2 left, and which really surprised me that it was that in sync or synchrodestiny or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
So those things, I think, a lot of times come up in your life, and they're just meant to be.
Yeah, and I understand that also kickstarted another journey for you of writing, but you write a lot. I know, I've heard some of them. Is there a future book? Not that I'm pushing you towards that, but
there's basically 2 books in the progress. Right. They're completely different. So it's just, we hit a checkpoint right now with COVID, and also transitioning businesses right now where my children are taking over the businesses from us, and that would happen right in that transition, right in COVID. Hey, a lot of people don't make it through, and we've worked really hard to get to where we are, and we've still got, a few more months where we're all going to have to pull together. Yeah. This is not a regular crisis. Businesses are going down left, right, and center, and a lot of people just don't realize how crucial this is. I mean, we are at a real turning point. There's going to be a lot of people that won't have jobs.
Yeah. What do you think, for people listening out there that run businesses, what have you done differently where you have sustained the business and it's still ongoing? What advice would you give them?
You basically have to pivot. And that's one of the things. If you look, a lot of times you can't do it the way you did it before, or literally do what you did before. Like basically our uniforms, our mass business pulled us through, COVID. And I mean, we're still transitioning because it's hard. You can't have people in, you can't have events. Right. I mean, you're talking where our formal wear business is probably down about 85% because people just are not doing big weddings, and there are no black tie functions. Right. So that's but you've got menswear, which will pick up here, and you've got your uniforms. And then, as you know, with Bridal Fantasy, we're pivoting. Yeah.
So for those listening, yes, with Bridal Fantasy came in Love Anthropology as one of the pivots, and the way you pivoted in the other in the uniform section was you decided to make masks right away from the get-go, which is innovative. I mean, there's a lot of people doing it now, but it was about that beginning point to come up with a solution.
Yes, and ours, because we deal with first responders, had to be really good. So we ended up doing masks for like PCL, Dyna Labs, CNRL, like some really, really big companies. Right. And that's kept us, above water.
Perfect. So you run a business, you've raised kids, your wife. Give us, during COVID, give me a snapshot of your day. You start in the morning at work and then you get home. Give me a quick rundown for people that are, the reason I ask this, there's a lot of a younger audience that are always, you come across and you converse with, and life just seems to be so hard for them. And sometimes with their own, like in their own context, I understand it. But then I watch you and everything you do in a day, and I say to myself, I think you guys got it pretty good. So give it.
I wake up around 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
I don't use an alarm clock.
Mm-hmm.
I will usually get up and meditate for about 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Not really any longer than that. And then I usually write. I go and do some online work or banking or whatever I've got to do. I've usually done my emails before I even get into work.
Right.
And then, you get up and you make breakfast. So I'm a big component of homemade meals and a lot of things from scratch and stuff like that. So that's important to your health. There's no two ways about it, that is a big part of your day. And then, you're off to work and you're basically here for, I'm usually the first one here.
Yeah.
Pretty well.
Yeah.
So, and I've always been like that. I don't work as much late, but I used to work a lot hours late. Now I go home and I will, after we make supper or something like that, watch a little bit of news because I like to hear what's going on. I mean, like everybody else, we were all pretty well mesmerized with this last election and what was going on with Trump or currently going on with him.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then I usually will go and read. I probably go to bed around 11:30.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Yeah, I will say that because I've watched you always be here earlier than everyone else. And you also leave on the dot, not sooner. And what I like, and I've seen just for people that are listening, is that even though you are the boss, boss lady, whenever you leave, you tell everybody, I'm leaving. This is why I'm leaving, which is, I respect and admire that because I don't think you need to, but it's a great habit. You run the company, you can leave whatever you want, but I love that you tell us that because then, it makes everybody feel
I think
equally
it's
valued.
important for everybody to know when somebody leaves anyway. If there's a phone call or there's something else that needs to be attended to, they can either get you on your cell, or if you're doing something that's personal, they need to know.
Yeah. One of the things you have mentioned, you love cooking and you are big into healthy eating. Mm-hmm. And you've even talked about your soups that you make, bone broth soups and all that. I know you had cancer, and how I know at some point you're going to be putting those videos out too, but everybody should wait for those because they are delicious. But what are your thoughts on healthy eating, or how did that play a role in when you were?
When we were married young, 21. Yeah. So our honeymoon, we went to Hawaii. And I met a gentleman called Dr. Paul Bragg. Right. So that's Bragg olive oil, apple cider vinegar, and they would exercise at Fort Gerusi Park every single day. Right. And we would go down and exercise with them. And he started talking to me about, water distiller. We went home and bought a water distiller and different things like that. And it was kind of interesting to listen to him because he as well had some people that followed him like Lauren Bacall, Gregory Peck. I'm trying to think of...
famous people, writers and actors. And
they did a lot of exercise, looked after their health. And Clint Eastwood is another one who's followed the teachings of Paul Bragg and stuff like that. So, those things I think are important. So it's that. And then choosing to eat mainly organic. And as you know, I'm not big into coffee or tea or anything like that. So for me, it's basically water all the time, right? So I don't know. It's those components. I'm also the oldest of 9 children. So I learned to cook when I was already a really good cook by the time I was about 9 years old. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, those sort of, I know my mom had cancer, but it forces you to also look at healthy eating because you have no other option. You learn a lot about it. Most interesting person, because I know you've met a lot of people. You've named some. You've met Wayne Dyer. Who do you think was the most interesting person you met, or someone that inspired you of all the years of?
I would say it would have been Dr. Darrell.
Oh, okay.
He was amazing, and even though all the books and everything like that, you could see ongoing the transformation with him. And the other person that I would say that was like that probably impressed me, not that I got to talk to him that much, was the Dalai Lama. There's an energy about those two people just being in their presence that is totally amazing, and you can tell. Yeah.
You had run into him, from what I've heard, at a hotel, but you felt his presence. You actually mentioned that there's a really high energy in the hotel, and then
you knew somebody was there. There was something that was there.
I know. I believe in that. It's one of those things where you go, you can feel, you meet someone and then you say the aura was really amazing, or you just get a chill and you don't know what it is, but it is people.
And it's things like Louise Hay, I took a course from her, and she basically said, turn to your left, turn to your right, introduce yourself to these people, because this is not random. And I found those things definitely were not random, and how many times in your life they are not random.
Right. I'm going to ask you one last question. You can choose to answer it or not, but it's a bit of an awkward question. I was asked this. It's, if somebody were to write your obituary, somebody standing there and they're reading about you, what would you like them to say? What would your legacy be?
I think a lot of times it's just how many people I've tried to help in my life. I don't talk about it. I think it's random acts of kindness. I don't think it is something that you should talk about, but I think all that over the years, when you do pass on, you see how that affects people. I know even with my father was not somebody that a lot of people would have thought that was like that. There were over 1,200 people at his funeral. They were all outside. We live in a little town in the Okanagan. And that only came from all those people that he helped. So that was something to see, something like that. Never talked about it. Never told us as his children, or even my mother, did not know the things that he did.
Right. So life lived in kindness and compassion. Thank you for sharing all that. I know it's not easy being a guest in your own house, but before we close, is there anything you wanna share?
No, I think the biggest thing is, you just have to keep learning. That is probably one of the biggest things, is whether it's a podcast, a book, an online session, is to just open up your mind and try and get something new every day. It's really, really important. It's critical to growing as a person. And people that stay young, they can be 90, 100, and you see these people, it's because they've always continued to do things and continued to learn.
Yeah. Well, those are some incredible advice, and thank you for sharing. I know for myself and everybody here in the room, there's a lot to learn, especially given that we are babies in terms of experience and knowledge. Thank you. We will wrap this up.
Okay.